Thank you, Presiding Officer. Water is one of the most abundant resources on this planet, one which through its ubiquity in Scotland, through its almost constantly being in our vision, through its easy availability from our taps, we Scots take for granted. However, the idea of water's ubiquity or its easy availability to all is false. For many in the world, it's a vital commodity in desperately short supply. As available water resources become stretched, the value of water, both economically and in humanitarian terms, becomes greater. According to the United Nations, there is enough fresh water on the planet, but it is distributed unevenly, and too much of it is wasted, polluted, and unsustainably managed. We take water for granted, but disregard it at our peril. It may not always feel like it, but Scotland is a lucky country, blessed by an inventive and inquisitive people, a resource-rich land and sea, easy access to what the world is increasingly recognising as the next great asset, easy access to water. One of the tests for us in future will be how we care for this great asset and how we use it. Our Victorian predecessors in particular exercised clever stewardship and innovation, building drinking water and sewerage infrastructure for Scotland's people, helping to drive cholera out of our cities. To this day, we benefit from their investment, from their foresight, and from their efforts. Scottish Water is the embodiment of that, and for less than £1 per day, the average household gets wholesome water and its waste removed and treated. Our water is a public asset, and we are committed to ensuring that it is managed and exploited for public good in a public agency. I believe the majority here in this Parliament continue to believe that. So the first purpose of our looking at how we should discharge our water responsibilities is to maintain that link between public asset and public good. Has our public body, Scottish Water, done well? Yes, it has. It has been the fastest improving water company in the UK and continues on an improvement path. It delivers excellent value for services while improving quality and customer service. Customer bills are stable. But can it do more? Yes, it can. Scotland Water is Scotland's biggest purchaser of electricity, and there is considerable potential in its asset base to develop wind, hydro and micro-hydro power generation to the extent that all Scottish Water's electricity needs could be met and further amounts of electricity could be generated and exported to the grid. There is also considerable potential to develop redundant assets, such as disused sewage treatment works, into modern waste recycling facilities that support Scotland's drive to become a zero-waste society. Scottish Water holds a great deal of water knowledge and experience and could use that to become part of a centre for the sustainable exploitation of water. We should aspire to lead the world here. We're confident that there are significant commercial opportunities in each of these, and there is more. Looking at areas that are not so overtly commercial, our people want to help when international disasters strike. Water is often the instrument of disaster, or the carrier of disease, or the cause of drought. We should aspire to Scottish expertise and practical help, making a bigger difference. The vision painted by the First Minister in his statement in September on the programme for government described an evolution for Scottish Water, not a revolution. He promised that we would bring forward legislation to enable Scottish Water to play a wider role. It is usual, of course, as part of this process, for discussions to take place between the Scottish Government and the Parliamentary authorities about various matters relating to draft legislation. It is true that we originally believed we could start the move of Scottish Water into a broader role with a very limited bill. However, as we reflected further on our vision for Scottish Water, it became clear that we were at risk of underestimating the potential. Our proposals for legislation might be seen as too limited and not provide a sufficient basis for the continuing development of Scottish Water's role. We can also be more imaginative in how Scottish Water could develop a role in key area of public concern at home. For example, Scottish Water already has a close relationship with local authorities. Its retail arm, Business Stream, works with them to help reduce water use and therefore save money on their bills. This is only a beginning. Scottish Water also has extensive experience in procuring large-scale capital projects. Could we find a way to use this experience more widely? Perhaps local authorities could draw on this expertise when procuring flood protection schemes and other flood management work, ensuring best use of public funds by taking a shared service approach. Canals are important assets which we are retaining in the public sector in Scotland. We should be asking ourselves what opportunities there are for creating additional public benefit from all our water infrastructure, both inland and maritime. But on top of this, water is global. It respects no borders. Climate change brings droughts to previously wet areas and floods to places not used to flooding. Water's ever-changing journey across the planet means the issues are international ones, the solutions global ones. As water supply becomes less predictable, so its importance to the economy and to society becomes more obvious. There's an old adage which runs, nobody worries about the well until it's empty. And as the world begins to worry about the well, so our vision needs to be international. These are among the important questions we need to examine more fully. Given the extent of the proposals, it would be wrong if we didn't have a full consultation phase. Many people will have views and ideas, and I'm sure they will add to the menu that I've described today. It's important that they are heard. We've identified some areas of uncertainty which could be very material. Significant among these are the UK government's decision to move British waterways in England and Wales to the third sector, and the forthcoming Scotland Bill's approach to borrowing powers. Present legislation is highly complex and based on Scottish Water undertaking a limited set of functions. We need to ensure that this framework, its regulation, its financing, its corporate structure, its interaction with ministers, is robust to the wider possibilities that we began to identify. We therefore decided last week that the present limited provision should be withdrawn, and I wrote to Patrick Harvey as convener of the Transport, Infrastructure and Climate Change Committee explaining this and setting out our plan to consult on proposals for legislation more wide-ranging than was initially planned. Later this month, it will be my pleasure to deliver on that promise when we bring forward draft proposals as part of an ambitious consultation on Scottish Water's future. I'm sure colleagues in all parties will welcome our commitment to consult on these important matters. In setting out that there should be a water bill, the First Minister spoke about developing a legacy for future generations, that making the best use of our precious water resources is a long-term strategy. I agree with these words, and I think that when discussing such a vital part of our economy, our environment, our society, we should do so in a constructive fashion. When we talk about water, we talk about our future. It underpins much of what we do. This chamber should beware of starting a storm in a water cup if the price of that is to block our ears and close our eyes to the important business of mapping a future for our most precious resource.